Serious folks who live in the deep wilderness or very rural areas, what is the scariest, most unsettling thing you've experienced out there? New house, very rural, bears, moose. Husband was traveling internationally and I was at home in the winter with an 8-month-old baby. Woke up 1 AM to let the dog out and the dog got interested in some tracks. Big boot tracks that led from the forest to my shed, to the side window, and then to the back window of the house. The dog had not barked and our alarm wasn't tripped, but somebody had walked out from the woods and stared in my windows. Lived with parents, but at the time was dog sitting, so it was just me and the dogs. In the middle of the night they wake up and look at the pair of doors leading to the wraparound deck, all glass, covered in curtains. They're doing the little booth thing that immediately wakes me up and I'm terrified. I can hear movement on the deck and the dogs are full on barking. I don't lock those doors or any other door because we live so rurally. I'm frozen with fear for a few moments, trying to think of some way to defend myself if someone comes through the doors. I immediately run to the kitchen, grab the biggest knife, and stand in the shadows near the door, absolutely shaking with fear. 20th at the time, with 911 ready to go on my phone in the other hand. Yeah, turns out my boyfriend was sneaking in. Almost stabbed him and pissed myself. Riding my bike down a dark, lonely highway at night hoping a bear didn't cross the road was often an unsettling thought. Hearing crashing in the bush happened more than a few times. We had a large mother bear and took cubs in our yard once. My mom yelled at it to scare it away, but it stood on its hind legs and roared. My dad was at work, so she herself grabbed a Winchester 30 lever action rifle and fired a shot in the air. That was enough to scare the bear away. Lots of bears here in Manitoba. They are my favorite animal. I respect them enough to know what they are capable of. Not to mention huge timber wolves, but they are very shy of humans unlike bears. I live in Ahuacatlan here in Mexico. It's very rural, and this story's happened like a decade ago, which meant it was more than it is now. Anyways, since it's a very little town, of course myths happen. There is a gigantic tree in the middle of the highway. It's not pretty, it's very scary. People call that tree El Árbol del Ahorcado, the hangman tree, because in war times people would be hanged there. Supposedly, when you go under the tree, you can feel taps in your head because of feet of the hanged. So I wasn't very scared at all. I didn't believe it. But once, I was riding home in my bike after visiting my grandpa at the cemetery, and it was really late. I was alone, and the highway was deserted. So, as expected, I passed under the tree without paying attention. I felt something big hit me in the face and thought it was a bug or something. Then I turned around and saw the silhouette of the tree behind me. I swear, I heard violins playing in my head like in scary movies. I rode home as fast as I could, thinking that I had just touched a ghost. I got plenty of stories like this. If you like, I can tell you some. 4 years ago, me and my best friend decided to go to her tiny house in the woods that her grandpa owned and stay for a few days. The place was completely isolated. The road was really far away and there were barely any houses around when we used to take walks during daytime. The first house that we saw was 30 minutes away from the one we were currently staying in. Her grandpa's house was a one-story only. There was one tiny bathroom. The kitchen was in the living room area and one bedroom. One night, I asked her to keep me company while I smoke a cigarette outside on the gazebo. She agreed, and before we went outside, we locked the front door, even though the gazebo was right next to the house and we could easily see if someone tried to get inside. We stayed a little longer outside because we got carried away in our conversation when all of a sudden we hear something hit the roof of the gazebo loudly. It was so fucking loud, it sounded like a body fell off the sky and onto the roof. We fucking froze. None of us would even dare breathe. We just looked at each other. I know that my best friend in these type of situations goes into full panic mode, screaming, running, so. Before she even managed to scream, I told her quietly to not make a sound and just grab her phone and go inside the house. We get up, walk away from the gazebo and to the front door, and I look up to see if there is something up there. Nothing. We get to the front door and guess what? It's fucking open. Almost fucking halfway open. At this point, my best friend starts jumping around and making sounds and tries to dial her grandpa. What the hell is that poor man even gonna do? It's a 2-hour drive from where he is. He didn't pick up at first, so I finally managed to convince my best friend to go inside and look around to see if someone's in the house. As I previously mentioned, the place is really small, so we managed to search the whole place in like a minute. There was nobody in the house. There's only one window in the house, which is in the bedroom and it's high up, and it was closed. Her grandpa finally called back. We told him what happened, and he said that we probably didn't lock the front door properly, but he didn't mention anything about the loud fucking thump on the roof of the gazebo. To this day, I still have no fucking clue what that was. We didn't sleep the whole night and all of the lights in the house were on because we didn't dare to spend a second in the dark after what happened. I travel a lot for work to the USA, so I ended up renting an apartment in a small village in the countryside. I hate staying at hotels. One day I finish work early, get back home, order in some food and just chill playing PlayStation in my room. At about 2 am I get woken up by a woman screaming bloody murder. I realize it's my housemate, and she's screaming because she's in danger and something bad's happening. I run to her room and there was a man trying to rape her. We fought and he made it to the door. I ran after him, but he got into a car and fled. We called the police and they eventually caught him thanks to the description I gave them of the car. Turns out he had been watching her with the intent of raping her. Her boyfriend works night shifts and he didn't count on me being home. Just to clarify, I rent an apartment with a couple of my friends who live there too. Because I had been in my room all night with the light off, and my room faces the back of the house, which is facing the woods and inaccessible to passerbys. He thought she was home alone and decided to attack her. He had been wanted for a series of rapes on town and is in jail now. Not sure if the type of story you wanted, not scary or creepy in a supernatural way, but hearing her scream that way was the scariest thing I've experienced. Not sure if this fits here. Was working in East Africa for a few years. There are some very beautiful and isolated places to go explore and enjoy. Always in respect to the customs and culture of the area, of course. The national park closest to us didn't have any fences/boundaries. It had all of the African wild animals you could think of. Could be classified as a rural area. And the rangers, not sure what to call them, was very vigilant in protecting both the animals and the people living close by. Most wild animals are very smart, and very few would wander close to people. The locals also had their way of dealing with the animals. For example, one night I woke up because of very loud drums and shouting. This was not out of the ordinary in the area I lived in, but it was coming from the area where there are no houses closest to the park. It was during the dry season and the elephants wanted to eat some of the juicy green vegetation close to the people's homes. There was a water spring. Elephants tend to be very destructive, and this particular male group had a very aggressive bull. So the locals were making noise to keep them away from the community. Now on to my scary experience. The accommodation I was using at that time didn't have any indoor plumbing, so if you needed to use the facilities, you have to walk about 20 meters to a communal long drop. It's very scary to walk alone at night, so usually I just limited my fluid intake during the early evening. But on that particular night my bladder was adamant, so eventually I convinced myself to go out. I'm not sure if the noise a hyena makes is well known by a lot of people. Yes, they do laugh like in the Lion King movie, but sometimes they make this ooh sound. They are able to move very quietly. Sometimes you'll smell them before you see or hear them. So as I'm about to squat down I hear ooh right outside the lawn drop. It would probably have been the most appropriate shit my pants moment in my life. In previous months hyenas bothered the locals and even dragged a young 5 junior child away by his feet. The child survived. They are very opportunistic like that and like to scavenge in the community's garbage sometimes. But they haven't been spotted in a while, so it was thought that they move on. Guess not. I'm not completely sure how long I was standing in that smelly long drop, but eventually I just made a mad dash for my place waving my flashlight like crazy. Probably not the best thing to do at that moment, but I was definition not thinking straight. When I was safe again, I turned around and could see a whole pack of them with their eyes reflecting the light. Bedpans made a lot more sense after that.